Are you using amp sims for your guitar practicing, playing, and recording your songs? A lot of us are these days, including myself, and amp sims are fantastic, especially in the home studio. But maybe you're like me and you kind of miss using your real guitar pedals as well and thought to yourself, I wonder if there's a way I could hook my real guitar pedals up to my amp sim and use it kind of like a real amp. That way I could use my overdrives, distortions, delays, reverbs, flangers, whatever I'm used to using, and frankly just spend a lot of money on. Today I'm going to show you 3 ways you can hook your real guitar pedals up to your amp sims. We're going to find out if it sounds any good, if it's even worth doing, and I'm going to show you how to avoid some mistakes along the way that will completely destroy your tone. All right, so let's take a look at our first setup. And by the way, this is actually my favorite setup of the 3, and I'll tell you why here in just a minute. But first, let's see what we have going on. Obviously, we have my Telecaster here, and that is plugged into the tuner on my pedal board. And for this setup, we're just going to use that bottom row of pedals. Those are just overdrive pedals right there. And we're going to come out of that last one, that plexi drive, and that is going to go straight into my audio interface. And of course, that's connected to my computer and my recording software and the Dream 65 amp sim plugin. And this is the tone that we have right now. Now, before we start adding our pedals, there's one very important thing we need to make sure we're doing, because if we get this part wrong, we can totally mess up our sound and our tone and just cause all kinds of issues. And that is to make sure that we have plenty of headroom on our audio interface and in our amp sim. Because once we start adding overdrive pedals and stuff like that, our volume can fluctuate. And this is a little less forgiving than an actual like tube amp. With a tube amp, if we push that front end a little hard, it's not that big of a deal. We get a little extra saturation, maybe a little overdrive, and maybe that's even what we want and we do sometimes on purpose, right? But in the digital realm with our audio interface and our amp sim, if we push it too hard and we're overdriving and clipping it, that's actually going to sound bad. That digital clipping does not sound good. So you want to make sure that you avoid that. So if we take a look here on my audio interface, you can see that I've got plenty of headroom there and also on my plugin. So as you're going along and recording and stuff like that, always just verify and double check that your levels are good and you're not clipping. All right, so let's add our first overdrive pedal. And the first one we're going to add is the Formula 55 by Catlin Bread. I love this pedal, especially through my real tube amp. When that's in the room with the cab and everything, sounds amazing. Here we are before. And let's add that in. So nothing too crazy, but it is definitely kind of a fuller sound, and that's one thing I really like about it. Now for a little bit more gain, we're gonna use the Timmy here from MXR. All right, here's the Timmy. I've actually kicked back over to the Formula 55 for now, and that's because I want to show you exactly why this is my favorite setup of the 3. And the reason is because my reverbs, my delays, all those time-based effects, they're actually not baked into the recording. So let me show you what I mean. So we still have the Dream 65 pulled up here just as before, but now I've added this Galaxy Tape Echo plugin, and this is a delay, just a tape delay. If this were a neural DSP plugin where they have the reverbs and the delays usually at the end of the chain there, I'd probably use those. But again, the Dream 65 doesn't have any of that, so I've added this plugin here. And as you can hear while I'm recording and playing, I can hear that delay while I'm recording, so I can get all that inspiration and vibe and feel while I'm doing all that. But that delay is not baked into my recording. The only thing that's actually getting recorded is my guitar going through the pedal, and that's it. Even the amp sim and all those plugins following that, those are all being processed after the fact. So I have a 16th note delay on here right now. If I decided later on as I'm recording the song, 16th isn't working for me, maybe I wanted dotted eighths or triplets or whatever it is, I could change it later because that delay is not baked into the recording. All right, so setup number 2 is a lot like setup number 1, with one major difference. So we still got the guitar going into the tuner and going through those overdrives at the bottom, but instead of coming out of that plexi drive and going into my audio interface, it's gonna wrap back around and go into my time-based effects. So we're gonna start on the top right with the Canyon delay and go left through there and come out that last pedal. That last pedal is a spark. It's a boost pedal. We're not using that at all, but even though we're not using it, we're gonna come out of that and then go straight into audio interface, and the rest is the same with the Dream 65. And we're not going to be using the tape echo right now because we're going to be using these time-based effects. So this setup actually does a couple of things for us. One, it kind of emulates how you'd use a real deluxe reverb, right? If you were using delays and reverbs or tremolo pedals or whatever it is with a real deluxe reverb, all those would have to plug into the front because it does not have an effects loop. So we're kind of emulating that here. Now you may like that, you may not like that. That kind of depends. If you don't like it, stick around for setup number 3. The other thing it does for us is it's going to bake our delays, our reverbs, whatever we're using on those pedals into our recording. And you may say, well, why would you want to do that? Because one of the great things about the first setup is it didn't bake the delays in and stuff like that. We could change them later. Now we can't change them. Well, there's a couple reasons why you might want to do this. One, maybe you have a pedal, a specific delay or a reverb or tremolo that you just really like the sound of. Maybe you spend a lot of time researching it, a lot of money on it, and it's just kind of part of your sound. Now you can incorporate that into your recording. Another reason might be because you have a pedal that makes a certain sound or has a certain kind of setting that you just cannot replicate at all with the plugins that you have. And that's the scenario we're going to run with today. We're going to use this Canyon right here, and I have a setting that I programmed in there, a custom one, several years ago. I have not taken it off because my kids thinks it's hilarious and it's funny to break out in our jam sessions every now and then. So we're going to use this kind of silly sound for our example today. Also, we're going to be using a felt pick because I think it sounds better with this. All right, so kind of a funny, silly organ kind of sound. But if I wanted that in my song for some reason, this is the only way that I can get that. And so that would be one reason why I might choose to use this setup. Hey there, just wanted to jump in real quick and say if you're finding this video helpful, please give it a like and a subscribe so you can get more helpful videos just like this one. And if the recordings of your songs aren't sounding as good as you would like them to, jump down to the description box down below and grab my free guide, 7 Recording Secrets to Pro Sounding Songs. These are things that the pros use all the time. You can start using them today in your home studio without buying any gear, and they're going to help improve the recording quality of your songs so they sound more professional. So if you kind of hit a roadblock and you just can't quite get your songs to sound the way you'd like them to, go grab that guide. Give those things a try. All right, back to the video. All right, so let's take a look now at setup number 3. And like I said in setup number 2, if you don't like your delays and reverbs and all that kind of stuff going into the front of your amp, then this setup is for you because it's more like an effects loop situation. Not exactly, but it's a pretty good approximation. However, this setup is also a little bit more complicated, and some people may not be able to do it because of hardware limitations. So I'm going to show you exactly why that might be here in just a moment. But let's take a look at this setup and how everything is working. So of course we have our Telecaster going into our tuner just as before. We're going to go through those overdrives and come out the plexi drive there and into my audio interface. So all that right there is the same as setup number 1. Now where things get a little bit different is we still have our Dream 65 pulled up here, but you'll see that this is set to direct. there's not a cab and microphone like before. This is direct. So the only sound that this is going to put out right here is our overdrives going into the head of the amp, and there's no speaker and no microphone. Now you can see right here on this channel for the guitar, I've changed my outputs from main, which goes to the speakers, and it's actually going to output 5 and 6. So I have outputs on the back of my interface, and I'm going out of output 6. And this is where some people may not be able to do this because you're going to need some additional outputs and inputs on your audio interface. Now, I did try doing this with my Universal Audio Volt 2. You can see it's got 2 inputs right here, and then on the back it has 2 outputs, but those go to the speakers. There's no additional outputs or inputs on the back. I tried several different ways of doing it, tried getting kind of tricky with it, but I can never actually get it to work. It kind of just gave me a feedback loop. Maybe yours might work, but with this one I couldn't. The best way to do it is to have additional outputs and inputs on the back of your audio interface. Okay, so we're coming out of the output 6 of my audio interface, and now we're going to go into a reamp box. And what this does is takes that line level that's coming out of my audio interface and changes it to an instrument level, which is what my guitar pedals are going to want to see. It's going to look a lot more like an actual guitar plugged into my pedals. So we come out of the output of the reamp box and we go into the input of my first effect pedal, which again is that Canyon. Then that's going to run through the rest of the effect pedals. We're going to come out of that Spark and now go back to my audio interface into input number 5. Now I have a second channel set up right here, and you can see I have the input set to input number 5. So all the overdrive, the Dream 65, those delays, reverbs and stuff, that's all going to come into this input right here. And then right here, I have actually a cab sim. I'm actually just using the cab and microphone section for the Tone King Imperial Mark II by Neural DSP. I have everything turned off and just using the cab and microphone. If you have an IR loader, in particular IRs you like to use, you could do the same thing right here. I just like this. I think it sounds pretty good, and I can change the microphones out. All right, so now that we have the setup all kind of worked out, let's hear what this sounds like. We're gonna be running through the Timmy. We're gonna run in some delay, some harmonic tremolo, and some reverb. So kind of just a big mess of sound. So pretty cool setup, kind of like an effects loop, like I said. I know, not exactly, but the delays and reverbs and all that are coming after the amp head and before our speaker. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you're recording this way, then everything is going to be baked in except for that speaker. So you can still tweak the speaker and all that after you record, but everything else is baked in. And there actually is kind of an alternate setup you can do with this. We could actually get rid of this cabinet and microphone right here, and then we could add our cabinet back in right here on this one. And when we do that, we have kind of the same thing going on, but now the speaker and microphone tone and all what it's doing is going to run through our delay and our reverb as well. So a pretty cool sound, still sounds good, a little bit different. Obviously sounds different because we have different microphone and cab going on there. But one thing to keep in mind with this setup is that everything is baked in. There is no changing anything after the fact. Again, I really like setup number 1. It's simple, allows me to use my overdrive pedals if I want, and allows for the maximum flexibility. But there's something fun and cool about doing setup 2 and 3 as well. So in the comments down below, let me know which setup is your favorite. And if you're new to amp sims or maybe have some questions or running into some issues, make sure you check out this video right here. I show you how to set everything up, what settings to use, and how to fix the most common problems that people run into.